going to stand up here for the introduction, which I may find in a moment. Okay, who am I? I am Paige Gibbs, the very difficult president of the Barnard Historical Society, who has been laboring on this for probably 5 years, ever since Mary gave me the onion paper things to scan before we gave them over to the Woodstock department. You've got yours, Horace. Okay. And there is, somewhere in here, when I will find it. Ah. Okay. First, a little bit of housekeeping. If you need to use the bathroom, it is going to be in the Grange Hall, the community hall, which is down around the corner. But I suspect most of you know that anyway, but you need to know that. Refreshments will show up later. All right. How many of you are familiar with what the little brick is? Okay. This is where this was written. January 1943, page 1. This issue of the East Barnard Grange News might be called the birth of a new idea. All the members of the Grange have been cudgeling their brains to arrive at a method whereby all our friends and relatives in the armed services will be assured of receiving news of their home folks at fairly regular intervals. Finally, from out of the blue came the idea that a newsletter published at such intervals as passing events indicate would be just the thing. So, like it or not, here we go. It makes us feel very important to know that our paper reaches out to the uttermost parts of this little old world of ours. Aside from the Reader's Digest and 1 or 2 other publications which have foreign circulations, we really haven't much serious competition. We wish to tell you that we appreciate how hard it is to read these letters when they're written on such thin paper. The reason we are using the onion skins is so that we can make 6 copies at once. You see, we have to send it out to 19. Send out 19 copies and 1 copy for our files. That means we have to type it 4 times. Even with thin paper, we figure you would not mind a great deal, and it makes it easier for your editor. It's 2 fingers. We only know how to use 2 when it comes to typing. Everyone here at home is interested in everything you do, see, hear, and think. So how's for you to write your editor, giving us news of yourself and any funny little thing that happens to you or some of your buddies? We know that little things happen which seem funny at the time. Just send it on. Your editor will build the story up. If you just give him the facts, your censors would never object to this kind of thing. Number 2. Number 2. The veteran, the recipient of those letters. It does, because you are. I'm finished with being number 1. I'm just going to stay here because getting up and down these steps is...
Well, I got this to read.
Okay, you have to... Hey, Mr. Van Alstyne, would you please turn around and face the audience, bring the walker around? Okay. See, I told you, bossy. She wants to see your face full front.
Anyway, I'm Floyd Van Alstyne,
And I left this valley on April 13th, 1942. And Uncle Sam said he had a job for me. So, consequences was I wound up down in Fort McClellan, Alabama. And I will have to tell you, when I first went to the range, I made expert. So then they started teaching me to be a sniper and testing the M1 rifle. Any of us here that handle the M1 rifle, and I still got the M1 thumb. So then I wound up in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and done some training, and we were forming what you call a portrait caddy, and what that was, we learned to unload ships and handle heavy equipment, load ships and that. So, next thing you know, we had orders to go to Pacific. We had the number and everything, and well, so we thought we was headed for the Pacific. So the way they organized the Army back in 1942, the day before we were supposed to get on the train, the bigwigs decided that we were over 200 short to make a full battalion. So they just went into the replacement depot and grabbed over 200. And some of them hadn't been in the Army a week, no training whatsoever. And then we did have some that had been in. They got on the train, and where did we wind up? In Churchill, Canada. And what we supposed to do up there, well, to come find out, we were unloading cars and ships that came in to build a runway for fighter planes to refuel and go to the next stop, which was up at Coral Harbor, just south of the Hudson Straits. And so we went up there, done some work, and then back to Churchill. And we had to stay there until the Hudson Straits froze over. We were sleeping in tents. In the morning, we got on the train to come back here. It was 40 below zero. So then I finally wound up in Africa. And I went over on the Susan B. Anthony. And I'll have to tell you this story because it's a truth and think. I'm not a reader, and I've read about the convoys that were going under Greenland, Iceland, down into York, and they used to get the supplies to England and whatnot. And it was TQ-17. There was a destroyer on that, the name of it was Roe. Well, the big British admiral thought that the Germans were going to bring out that big battleship that he had. So he called off all the American Navy and let them go. Well, that then, when I wound up in Italy, I was sitting down there in Salerno, just opposite Paisley, on a ship, way before daylight, eating sea rations, and I saw this tremendous ball of flame just over the horizon. Well, I knew something happened, and later we found out that the German U-boat had torpedoed the Rowan. Well, out of over 200, there was 70 odd that survived. And the thing is, the Rowan went over with on Susan B. Anthony escorted. Well, they didn't think anything about that until after the war, and it was back up here on Webster Hill Road. There was a gentleman named that bought a place there, and that anyway, come to find out, he was on the road when it was, and one of the survivors, his grave was right over here. That's how small the world can be. And it was Jeff Wilson, that was his name. So I got that story. That's the war. And I never, every time I look at it, I think of it. And anyway, so then where I left, down in Fort Miles, Kansas, which is near Taunton, and went down to New York, and I wound up in Oran, Africa. And of course, didn't get any letters for a while. And then finally, I did get some from Mr. Brett and I saved them for them in my barracks bag. Well, if any of you want them that I saved, you can go to Payson and go down to the beach and go 30 miles out into the Mediterranean. You will find my barracks bag down in the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. The ship was torpedoed. I was ashore, see, because that way they put so many of us on each ship to unload that. And it was the 36th Division from Texas. And so that was some of these letters. Yeah, down in the bottom of the med now. So I would read that, and I did get promoted to sergeant. We had a letter from Floyd Van Alstyne telling us all about the queer birds he saw running across Africa. He also comments on the size of the paper that French had there. It was in French Algeria. Anyway, but we got paid in, let's see, in the dollar bill that was just the same as a dollar bill, and that then the next paycheck we got paid in francs now. And that dollar bill that I got that first time, I can go up to the house and show you one of those dollar bills that I kept. And I carried it with me. Then from then on, the invasion of Italy, and then up to Naples. We operated the port of Naples. And then from there I went to Anzio and then back to Naples. But I kept that there. There's got that story on that African part. And now Floyd also sent a little newsletter clipping that had poetry on it. One side and a picture of a lovely lady on the other. We presume Floyd wanted us to see the poem, but you can tell about these savages, but yeah. Now, let's see, November 43, I was in Naples and Italy unloading ships. And loading ship. We learned that Floyd has again changed his PO. Now that's, that he sent more, that would be more lorry. Used to be, when I left the Army, it was more that. But some pictures in the letter dated October 21st, from the pictures we judged that Floyd had been working pretty hard. Well, we did it. We got completely 12-hour shift. There was no such thing as an 8-hour. It was yamming. We worked. And a lot of times, I've known those winches to be running on one shift, and then they come right along, and you step right over, and actually that winch never stopped. And the winter finally, we got the port cleared out. Out of 64 berths in the Port of Naples, when we went up there from Solano, there was just 2 berths that you could get a ship in. And the Germans had just sunk ships, and of course we bombed some, but they sunk everything they could think of on every pier, even the big pier cranes and stuff. They dynamited them so they went on. Oh, and between the Seabees and the Navy, regular Navy, and the American engineers, they cleared that port out. And by the end of 1943 or 44, the Port of Naples handled more tonnage than the Port of New York. And they all went. And for instance, we had a replacement that was the lieutenant in the infantry in the wounded. And he came to work with us. And he made a remark to us that he never realized the material it took to keep him up on the front lines. That's the way it was. And September 44, yeah, I was down Naples. Since our last letter, we had 2. The mail letters from Floyd Van Alstyne. The first one was dated August 10th, and the other August 31st. His address is unchanged in this letter. Floyd lays stress on the fact that he's getting fed up with doing the same thing all the time. Well, here, and we can just imagine how boring it must be compared with the mad hurry-burry of East Barnard. But it's never a dull moment. Thanks for the letter. We sure. Then, August 45.
Excuse me, Floyd?
Huh?
Floyd, what does IT mean on your blouse?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. We were stationed
That's right.
in a 7-story hotel building right outside the Port of Naples. And then there was a post office that part of it was blown up, some of it, and they fixed it enough so some of the others, because they were over 4,000 in that battalion. And then our headquarters were in the fascist headquarters building that we chased out of there. Let's see. August 6th, Floyd wrote us another letter. Seems like he and his buddies hadn't cleaned up the room good enough to suit them, and so they had a big inspection. And we wound up, anyway, we were restricted for a week. But we knew how to get out. We used to found out we could go upstairs onto the roof of the hotel and then across that roof and jump over onto another roof and come down. That didn't last too long. They found out, they didn't say anything, but they put some big locks on the door. We learned it. Boy, did he give me a... It was interesting work for a hillbilly. And then, of course, we went to Amesville Beachhead, and that was something different. And we have Duncan Fletcher. I was out on the Duncan Fletcher when that a shell hit that. Of course, Fretton luckily struck me on the helmet right here, so I back. And then later I had to be down on the beach where you go into Anfield, and they was shelling it, and I still got my backpack, and shell came in, and shrapnel went right through the back of it like that. And they figured it missed me about 3 inches. It was I saw that. So I guess, and then when I passed over, after, of course, World War II was over, and I was lucky. I loved the atom bomb because in my unit there was 8 of us that volunteered to go to Pacific, and that week after, I was supposed to get on, a week before, I was supposed to get on the ship to go to the Pacific, Japan surrendered. So I love that atom bomb. It
last
was
thing-
interesting for an old hillbilly.
Yeah. And the last thing is, what did you do? What did you do before you even left the
Right
service?
here, see? And they said it was, I got discharged the 2nd of November, 1945, and I remember I came up and they were having square dance over here, and oh, I had a hard job to stay sober.
He was already a property owner.
Huh?
You were already a property owner.
No, I bought it the 17th of November.
Same house that he lives in today. Can you hear me? Okay. I was instructed that.
Oh,
This is the one place where everybody can hear.
yeah. All right. I'm Mary Goodall-Steincroft. And it says first thing to say a bit about my attendance at the school. Well, yes, I attended school here, 1st and 2nd grade, the East Barnard School. Before, I think if I remember right, when they closed the school, there were probably about 8 students, if that. And from there, I went to South Royalton. This is from one of the letters. Yes, from Mr. Westbrook. Right, so we did not have a community Christmas tree this year. As one above Uncle Sam's alphabetical boys, the writer does not remember which one, decreed that outside Christmas trees must not be lighted. This was in order to conserve electricity. Sounds like illumination eliminated. That was all in caps. The school had its usual Christmas trees and celebration, and it was a huge success this year. 2 plays, one by the lower grades and the other by the upper grades, were given. Both groups had their lines well memorized and certainly put their backs into the acting and general stage business. Who knows? Maybe we have some Maybe we have been developing some Hollywood or Broadway timber right here in East Barnard. Songs were sung by various pupils and groups of pupils. Then we had a regular old-fashioned community sing-song at the close of the festivities. Santa Claus, in the person of Harold Potwin, arrived with presents for the kids. Some fun, some fun.
We need a railing there. Oh, more people here than I thought. I have this little note about, this is a newsletter item about an article that I read in the East Barnard Grange meeting. And my name is Marion Levitt Lavassa Whitaker. And the meeting was on July 1945 on page 3. The original version omitted the word maple before sugar. The Grange program was a varied one, and I read the article on the many uses of maple sugar. This correction waited 4 years to be made, and I don't know what that means.
Because in the newsletter, it said the many uses of sugar. I mentioned it to Marianne. She said, maple, of course. So I put it in here so that she could have the chance to correct it. Around here, everybody would have used maple sugar anyway, but the way it read was, for those of us that are too young to have been rationed with sugar, that why are you telling so many people the many uses of something that you can't even use, you can't even get?
Well, Mr. Westbrook, who lived in the brick house across from the store, was the editor of this newsletter that he wrote, and he read it every month at the Grange meeting, and it was sent to all the boys in the service and girls too, and that is what I heard all the letters he wrote. Making too much noise?
Yeah. That's probably better. Try it out.
Beep.
Talk.
Okay, you hear me better now? Sometimes they don't get close enough. Well, anyway, it was quite an undertaking for him to write all those letters and send out so many, and I'm sure they were very much appreciated, and we enjoyed hearing them. But to ask me what they were about, to this day, I can't tell you one little thing, except there's one thing that I remember in those letters. And that was a story about my brother John when he was 7 years old.
But he's got his own
Losing his finger in the gears of that old engine. And he had to, he was pretending.
He's going to read that himself.
He's going to tell it?
Yeah.
I didn't suppose he would.
Give him a fair turn. Yes. See, it's all in the name.
But that's the one thing that I remember in all those letters. I can remember Mr. Westbrook telling about that.
If you can't hear me, I'll pull it back. Pardon? Oh, okay. All right, I'm Leo Joseph Rodriguez, and the letters that Paige gave me were about my Uncle Horace and my grandfather Joe that was here. Just a short history of how they came here, how they've been here. They had a farm on Broad Brook, the one that Bushrod Powers is at now. And they farmed that for a long time. There was a dairy farm, and they had the Jersey cattle, and they used to pasture the cattle across the road where Tom Powers' house lives now. There was a field there, so they used to run the cows across the brook morning and night over by Tom. But Tom wasn't there, then it was Mr. Broom that lived there, and then Horace did a lot of logging in the winter. Him and my grandfather would cut logs like many other people down Broad Brook. And the group of neighbors on the brook would get together after they all had plenty of lives, and they'd wait for a day when the roads were good and solid, so they didn't, goop them up when the sleds would go down easy. So say 4 or 5 farmers would get together and say, well, this is the day we're going to do it. And one of the reasons they did that was down in Sharon, because they headed towards Sharon. Down in Sharon, there was a grade that one team would have a very hard time to get over. That grade isn't there anymore. It's down where there's a sand pile down there. They took the sand out, but there was a hill right across the road there. So what they do, they'd all head down to that spot, and then they unhitched the team that was in the rear, and they hook it to the team that was up in the front, and they pull that load a lot of it over the top, and then they did it with each one, and then they all went on way down to the mill. But anyway, here's the letters that Ruth again. First one is, Horace Reducer is feeling mighty chesty these days. All by himself, he dropped and worked on a maple tree that was 3 feet on the butt. A mighty tall bunion right here in our midst, by God. And then the next letter, April 1943, the Ladies Community Club gave a party on Friday evening, March 19th. It was a St. Patrick's Day party, and all folks were divided into teams of 4, and contests were held. The Grange team consisted of Edith and Phyllis Howard, Horace Reducer, and Don Westbrook succeeded after a good stiff competition in winning first prize. And the next letter is April 1944, page 4. Joe Reducer, Horace's father, is at present sharing a room at the Randolph Hospital with Jimmy Noonan. Joe has been ailing most of the winter and is in for observation while Jim is recovering from an operation. It is our guess that the nurses have their hands full with those 2 old coots. And this here letter is December 1944, page 5. Just after the last issue, we sent out Horace Reducer arrived at the village, all excited. He had a beautiful buck, a 7-pointer weighing 192 pounds. Horace got it with a 12-gauge shotgun. The first shot was loaded with BBs, and the second with a slug. Both took effect, so we are unable to say which really did the job of killing the deer. That's my last letter.
Hello, my name is Matthew Diesel. I've been here for just a couple of years. I currently live in Elwyn and Luna Moore's home, right here in the village. And I'm going to speak about this letter here in March 1943. This is regarding the rationing of the general store. The candy counter at Elwyn Moore's store is in bad shape. Something sure ails it. It has lost both weight and color. The last time I saw it there were 2 tired, wizened boxes of most uninviting candy and 1 package of gum. It was the best Elwyn could do. It seems that the usual occupants of the counter have been drafted and sent overseas or to some basic training camp. The same thing applies to the refrigerator. No sausage, no tripe, no butter. Imagine, if you can, these 2 babes in the woods, Beth and Don Westbrook, trying frantically to make themselves some butter, because there's just none to be had in any of the surrounding stores. Well, if that's all we have to deny ourselves to keep you boys supplied, we certainly can rejoice. If you'll take a good solid poke at the axis, you can have anything you want. We will go about to put power in your elbow. And the next letter, August 1943. Ellen Moore has been helping Galen with the hay, and as a result, Luna has been tending the store. She does a bully good job, but this kind of cramped boy style comes Saturday night. Somehow or the other, the stories don't seem quite numerous, not to say so wealthy.
Thank you.
We're taking up a collection for one on the other side right after this meeting.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dan Lovett. I'm the grandson of Dudley Lovett, and this story from it was a letter from 1943 in April, on page 4. It's written with him as a subject. It says, Dudley Lovett has sold his old Plymouth to Charles Sawyer and has since got himself a 1939 State Bobby Ford pickup. The Lovetts are more than proud of their new transportation system. It is just the kind he needs to take care of his business. Unfortunately, I had a blowout a few days ago for no apparent reason. One of the boys on the entire ration board had been fully and properly notified, but there just ain't none to be had for the time being. We hope for Dudley's sake he will be able to dig one up right away, as this is a poor time to be without transportation. We think we could find an old rubber band if it would help at all. Yes, before we forget, Dudley came home with the goat the other day for his kids. No doubt his goat body is not yet reported. And then in July 1944, Peggy Westbrook is spending her Christmas holidays with Beth and Donnie. In spite of her visit, the little break seems kind of deserted this year as compared with some other years. You can see other members of the Westbrook tribe just couldn't get home for Christmas.
Oh, sorry, there's another.
Hello, I'm Jill Levitt, married to Dan Levitt. Bob Levitt was my father-in-law. And these letters are about Mary and Peggy Westbrook, who live in the brick house. July 1943, page 4. Don and Beth Westbrook's two daughters, Mary and Peggy, will spend their vacations with them. They should arrive now most any time. The fellow has to be about 7 feet tall to whisper most nothings into their shell-like ears. Those Westbrooks never do anything by half, by cracky. May 1945, page 3. Mary Westbrook has been visiting there for the past month or thereabouts. She has resigned from the job she had in the Hill University and is to leave for England shortly to work for the YWCA. She has to take along with her all her clothes and medicines. Everything she will need for the next 3 years, as such things are not to be had in England. It takes some figuring to tilt out all such a long-term project. December 1945, page 4. This is page 3, graduation for the 8th graders, Marjorie and Marion Levitt. October 1943, page 4. We have been intending to tell you all for some time that we not only have a service flag hanging in the Grange with a star for each member of the Grange who was in the service, but we have also arranged to have an honor roll, which will carry the names of all those receiving copies of his newsletters, whether they are Grange members or not. You may be very sure that we home folks constantly remember that you're out there batting for the home team. I'm not sure, we found this in Bud's thing, so we're not sure if this is what they're talking about. What's the problem? Okay.
Jag spelade under basen och Chester Melville a few weeks ago. Now I was putting in her application for the wage. A few days ago, Marjorie and Marion also named the Church of Boston of Nellie, who this time was sworn in and told a report June 28. The girls are quite excited with the train rides, elevator rides, and a host of other experiences. None to be had in this metropolis of ours. Some fun.
I'm Joe Levesser. I'm the granddaughter of Josephine Levitt, whom I'm reading excerpts about, the ones that mention her name. And the first one is from 1943, about her brother, Leonard Moore, and his family, who lived down the brook across from the Anston place in what was known as the Gibson House. And it says, the Leonard Moores had the measles, and when we say the Leonard Moores, we mean it. Just about everyone had them. Josephine Levitt went down to give them a hand, and before she could catch her breath, she had 7 of them in bed at once. She must be some nurse, however, as they are all in circulation again, none the worse for wear, as far as we can see. And then in April 1945, while Bud Levitt was home, Josephine gave a party for him. Most of the village turned out and had a whale of a time. It was a miserable night as a wet snow was falling, but no one seemed to care a mite. Whist was played, and then swell of snacks were set out, only to disappear promptly with much lip snatching.
Hello, I'm Oscar Gibbs, Page's sister, and I'm here to read a letter about a sleigh incident. This is from March 1943, page 6. We don't know whether the next item falls under the caption sports or near accident, but anyway, here she is. One day, not long ago, Ethel Moore decided to give some of her friends a sleigh ride. Turner got out the old stage sleigh, and they started out, picking up Walter Adams, Hazel Carpenter, and the school teacher, Catherine Hollis. They brought Hazel at the dances, while Ethel stopped to visit Mrs. LaCroix. The rest continued along to Wheeler's, where they turned around to return. As they started back down the hill onto the Celia Flat, the pole broke. Turner and Walter unloaded and ran alongside, holding the sleigh back off the horses' heels. Suddenly Turner tripped and fell, and the reins got away from him. It looked pretty bad for a moment, but Walter made a grab for the reins and managed to get hold of one of them. He pulled the horses' heads around, so that they stopped in the deep snow at the side of the road. Catherine insists that Walter saved her life, so we recommend him without reservation for the Carnegie Medal. Next item is from April 1943, page 2. Ethel Moore gave another sleigh ride not long since, thinking that the Don Westbrook had probably never ridden in anything that didn't have a steering wheel. She invited them to join her on the trip to the Gamble Schoolhouse section. Trusty Turner hitched up, and away they went in the most brilliant sunshine imaginable. But by the time they got to Popwitz, the air was filled with snow, like there often is. By the time they were abreast of Sulians, they couldn't see the horses' ears. All decided to turn back, lest they be snowed in somewhere until spring. With a flourish, Turner turned stopped back at 9 and they started back right upwards. The snow had stopped, the wind had subsided, and by the time the village was in sight, the sun was shining placidly, just as if they had, just as it had been at the setting. Seems like Ethel's sleigh rides are destined to run into trouble.
Into it, and I was talking about Virginia Piper. Virginia Piper is my first cousin, first time we knew. Her mother was Dorothy Levitt. Dorothy Levitt Piper. And her brother was Dudley Levitt. And I met Virginia, my mom, Marjorie Nelson's first cousin, so I am her first cousin one time through. May 1943, page 6. Virginia Piper had some hard luck a few weeks ago. She was on the night shift and afterwards was sleeping during the day. About 1:30 p.m., the apartment house caught fire. Now, where was that? I don't know.
Hartford.
Where is that exactly?
Hartford, Connecticut.
So, okay, so Hartford, Connecticut. And Virginia was forced to make good her escape in nothing but a blouse and a pair of slacks. The rest of her clothes, her war bonds, pictures, etc., were all up in the apartment. Virginia had the presence of mind to grab her purse on the way out, so coupon number 17 at least was saved. But the war bonds also was mighty important. She tried to persuade the firemen to set up a ladder so she could dash up and rescue the bond. But the fire ladies were having nothing of that. Thank you. By good fortune, the bonds were later rescued or recovered. But what the smoke and water had done to poor Virginia's clothes was something. She said she would have been better satisfied if they were burned up, as that she would have a good excuse for replacing them with new. Isn't that just like a girl about Mr. November 1943, page 1, Boys in Service. Really, we should change the name of this department to read Boys and Girls in Service. You see, one of our gals has up and joined the Marines. Yeehaw! We said the Marines. Virginia Piper has landed and the situation is well at hand. She was sworn in November 5th and is to report to duty about Christmas. Good girl, Virginia. We shall expect a goodly wad of news on your activities and regular intervals. April 1944, page 4. Virginia ran across an old buddy of Dean's out in San Diego, who told her that Dean has been seeing some action and is now at Pearl Harbor. How about dropping us a line, Dean, and telling us anything you have? Everyone here in the village will be mighty pleased to hear from you. September 1944, page 3. Virginia was home for about a week, arriving September 1st, just in time for the Grange dance. And what do you think? She brought home a brand new stripe from other tube or so on her sleeve. Yes, for a private first class. April 1945, page 3. Virginia has been attending her school. She was the only girl in the class, and she came through at the top of the list. Good girl, Virginia. That's showing up to near males.
I again love it again. These fragments are about my father. From December 1943, page 2. Bud sent an interesting booklet describing and illustrating the setup at Samson. We had no idea Samson was such a big station. Well, we knew it was next to the Great Lakes in size, but we didn't realize just how big that made it. Bud's report that the chow was very good, and also he had been assigned a cushy job as a locker inspector. Far better than slogging down the barracks, by Ollie. On page 3, and as much as Bud Levitt up and joined the Navy, it was necessary to elect a new gatekeeper for the Grange. Norman Piper was elected on the first ballot. In January 1944, Bud Levitt wrote us a dainty letter from Sampson on December 29th. He spent Christmas with the Brady's in Ithaca and stopped overnight. What a nice break. Bud seems particularly impressed with the fact that the Navy barbers have reduced the time for a haircut to about 20 seconds. You see, but what happens when you go into production in a big way? March 1944. Bud describes some full-scale target practice they had. As trainer on his crew, he smoked one right in the middle of the target with their 5-inch baby. By golly, snagging a 3-foot target at 3,000 yards sounds like pretty sharp shooting, regular Daniel Bowman stuff. April 1944. Since our last letter, Buddy Levitt came home for a few days leaving. He seemed kind of glad to get hold of a maple bucket for a day or so. We know he's going to make a good gunner, but we don't know what kind of sailor they make. On the trip from Newport to New York, I understand it's quite a success. And then in November 1945, now comes a nice long letter from Buddy Levitt, written October 20th. He is on the USS Franklin Bell on transport service. Buddy and his mates lost any mail that might have been waiting for them at the mountain, as the whole post office mail and the boat that it was on blew away in a typhoon on October 15th.
Hello, my name is Marion Bernard, and I brought Mom to our house, and she wanted me to have it to keep it in the family, as long as I kept the cats. Extra, Mom, Laura, and Bill Laura went and done it. That cute little fella with the bow and arrow that we mentioned in our last issue found it at a bullseye on September 7th. Mom stuck away right after school, and before the village could catch its breath, that job was done. We suppose Mom got 2 checks for her first week work at school. One made out to Maude Allen, and the other made out to Maude Laura. The community got together last night, September 23rd, and they threw a dandy reception for Maude and Bill. The Grange Hall was nicely decorated, and the whole neighborhood turned out, young and old, and certainly show by their action that the match had their blessing. The Grange and the Women's Community Club got together and presented them with a lovely pair of soft, warm blankets, and many other folks gave them individual presents, which made quite an important pile. Bill made a little thank you speech, and then the whole gang swung out into the grand march, which opened for dancers. It lasted 2, and the rest of the evening, everyone took a recess for sandwiches, cake, and coffee, which was served in the best Eastbourne manner. The bride and groom each had a cake, and so did Josephine and Dudley Levitt, who by good fortune was celebrating their 18th wedding anniversary. Too bad we can't have weddings in about every 2 weeks.
Hello, I'm Sally Gibbs-Stevie, and I am the daughter of Margaret Page, and Ruth Page is my aunt. Their parents were Osborne, known as O.A., and Inez Page. Inez was formerly an Ellis, and she was first cousin to Dudley Levitt. So we have our home here in Barnard for quite so many generations. The house is up on what was known as Page Hill, but now they call it Hawks Hill. And it's been here for, my grandfather got the farm from his parents, so it's been many generations. So, this is letters from home to Page girls, dated September 1944, page 6. On August 11th, the Women's Community Club held their annual fair. It was a marked success. We understand that besides having a lot of fun, they made some real dough. Anyway, they had some nice exhibits, and the supper was a honey. The program put on later in the evening seemed to please the audience, if applause is any indication. There was a skit by Elaine, Babe, and Norman Piper. Recitations by Peggy and Mary Westbrook, who also sang a couple of songs, and another skit by the Pipers and Buddets, assisted by Peg Westbrook. Ruth Page and Margaret Gibbs put on a sister act in which Ruth played descriptive music on the piano, while Margaret made quick drawings in colored crayons. Those quickies are simply amazing. Margaret sure whips them out, and they always chime right in with Ruth's music. And this one is dated July 1945, page 6. Margaret Page Gibbs writes from Texas, where she is visiting Gerald. But the day she arrived there, it was 112 in the shade. She says that even the local Texans allowed it was tolerable hot. So my father was stationed down at Big Springs in the Army Air Corps doing airplane maintenance. So the next letter, the final letter, is dated January 1946, page 2. Margaret Page Gibbs has been entering into the life of the harbor with all the vim imaginable. She tells me that Gerald can't seem to get any light on the subject of his discharge. It was up to the pages. I was up to the pages. Don Westbrook. I was up to the pages on the old skis a few days ago and can report that Osborne and Irene seem to be very well.
Larry started this story. You hear me?
No.
Larry started this story. If she wants to finish it, she can. Because I'm not a good story. Anyway, I'm John Levitt, of course, son of Dudley and Josephine Levitt. And I live up on the Eureka Farm, been there all my life. Still hear me? Back in 1943, on October 29th, it was Halloween night. And I was out in the barn with my brother, two brothers, my father and my grandfather, and I was just a kid about 7 years old, and we were going to have a Halloween party down here in East Barnard at the Grange House. Well, I was in the barn and I was bored because they were milking the cows and taking a long time, and I wanted to go to the party. So I went out in the back of the barn, and then up there was an old gasoline engine that my father had been filling cider with, and it had blown up. So the cap on the top of the gears was exposed. And it was dark at night, and I got that old wheel going around, which made the gears go around, and I couldn't see what I was doing. And I was pretending that that was my car. And when I went to shift my car, my little finger went down between the gears. And it chewed it all up. Because I didn't know it, I couldn't see. And my father, and my brothers, and my grandfather were right in the barn about 20 feet away. But all I wanted was Mother. So I walked up to the road, down the road, up the path, knocked on the door, and held up my hand, and I said, I think I cut myself. And she said, I guess you did. And then I started getting very weak. And I wanted to go lay down. And Mary and Barnard, I don't know which one, was sent to the barn to get my dad. And he came in and called the doctor in South Royalton. And the doctor said to bring him over. So they loaded me in the truck. I don't remember going into the truck. It was an old 39 Ford that Danny talked about, that he bought in 1943. And we came down by the Grange Hall, and I can remember the lights all on in the Grange Hall, meaning the party was going to begin pretty soon, and I was going to miss it. So we went to South Royalton, the doctor unraveled the sheet that my mother had wrapped around it. And the doctor said, take this boy to Hanover. So we went, headed for Hanover, down in White River. I got sick and had to stop the truck. And I picked, and then we went to Hanover, but I don't remember going into the hospital. The only thing I remember was in the hospital, laying on the operating table, and they were showing pictures, X-ray pictures. And then the nurse put on her cloth full of ether on my nose and said, if you don't like that smell, take a deep breath and blow it off. And so I did. And she said, no, you didn't blow it off. You have to take another deep breath. And the next time I woke up, it was the next day. And I had a lot of ether. And my mother was there, and I wanted to show her my finger, and she said they had taken it off, so it wasn't there. And I said, well, Uncle Walter Piper had fingers, and he got caught in some type of a machine, and they're halfway out, halfway gone. So I figured mine would grow back out also. But I thought he was growing back out. So anyway, Kennedy was rationed, as people had said here before, and my Aunt Gail Harrington from North Ogden owned the store with her husband Earl, and she brought down a box of chocolates. Imagine that, during rationing of all the candy, and I had a whole box of chocolates. And the nurse took them and put them in a place where I could not get hold of them. And whenever she came into the room, I would say, can I have a chocolate? If I can have one too. So she got her chocolates and I got mine. And every time my mother came down, I cried like crazy. When she came down from the Fort Orange, but that, I was so lonely. That's why I figured I couldn't tell the story. And I get so emotional with it. But after being there a little while, I got pneumonia. And so then I had to be underneath a sheet, a rack over my bed, and a sheet over that, and they pumped in steam. And I had to stay there, I think about 12 days I was there, America. And I was in the hospital just for that. Probably went today, got everything we had to do. We'd be home the next day, or the same day. But, yeah, I got that pneumonia. I had to stay for a long time. And finally, I did, one thing. While in the hospital, they have windows, of course. And I am so glad that those windows were not open. If they had opened, I would have found out and probably wouldn't be here now. Because I just wanted to escape. I wanted to get out of there. But the windows wouldn't let me. They were closed tight. And then, after the 12 or 13 days, Elder Willie and my mother came down and took me home. And the next day I walked up the road and looked down where I got my finger, but I didn't go down there. I just couldn't. So that's my story.
Could you give that to Patrick Kell?
Let's look you back.
Clay was doing a wonderful job of pinch hitting for you when you didn't show up. He's got his own coming up.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Patrick Kell. I bought a house around the corner in the village about in 2016. I'm raising 3 kids right here in the village. But yeah, this is from Elmer Bennett. I live in what was the Stuntz' house, previously the Ottender's house, and I believe the Bennett's before that. Mm-hmm. But can't hear me? Okay, I'll go a little louder. All right. So, March 1943, page 3. Elmer Bennett tapped his first tree February 6th. Why all the delay, Elmer? You are 4 days late this year. We also have to report that Elmer happened to be at the store when George Tenney came along with the mail. Elmer took his mail and shortly later started along home with that. Pretty soon we saw him coming back up the road with a broom sweeping diligently. Gall, he had dropped one of the letters. After he made a couple of trips and finally given up hope of ever seeing it again, a couple of the boys at the store went along with him, and to the accompaniment of his dirge that it's no use, we will never find it now. They searched along the road and finally found it just about 3 rods from his dooryard. March 1944, page 5. The last big snowstorm we had, the plow came along and opened up the road. Then, just as everyone had finished shoveling out the corners, the ding-busted thing came back again and widened out. In this operation, it completely covered Elmer's blankety-blank mailbox. Elmer vowed in the most picturesque language that he could be hornswoggled if shoveled out the Gall-ding box. No, sir, by gad, sir, he's write a bloody letter to the by-gosh Postmaster General, so he would. July 1944, page 6. Elmer Bennett tried to telephone Bill Mason a few days ago, but found the line busy. You know how impatient Elmer is. Gall, and he could drive down and see Bill before those blankety-blank old hens got through gassing on the gosh-dang telephone. So jumping into Leapin' Lena, he took off down the road, hell-bent for leather. Just as he rounded the corner at the Little Brick, Harry Winchell, who was pinch-hitting for George Ainsworth on the mail route, came along. Harry almost stood his car on its radiator and didn't stop while Elmer pretty near landed in the lower pasture before he could bring Lena to a halt. As a matter of fact, we think she fainted as it was several minutes before Elmer could get the old gal underway again. Never a dull moment on this corner. November 1945, page 4. Elmer Bennett again figures in the news. It seems Floyd Van Alstyne was driving down the Barnard Road a few days ago and overtook Elmer, who was afoot. Floyd stopped and took him aboard. It didn't take Elmer long to tell Floyd the news. He had been chopping wood up the road, and after he got home, he couldn't find his gall darn teeth. Well, he went back and hunted all around the place until he finally located the gall darn things right there in your blankety blank mud. How lucky darn, he said, that he hadn't trod on the damn blame chicken dog.
I'm Don Lovejoy. I live down Broadbrook, right down the bottom of the hill where Mr. Powers' place is. And I lived there for about 10 years. And we moved up to down the Free Farm Hills. And the reason for that is Mr. Powers looked at the land up on the hill where the Powers house is, and the Federal Land Bank was owned it. My father working there for the land bank, and he's the first one to meet Mr. Powers. Mr. Powers came up to the property. And Mr. Powers bought the property there and 4 of the 5 other farms up the brook there. September 1944, page 9. Great statement. Charles Lovejoy is the proud father of a fine big boy, Donald Charles Lovejoy. Both Mrs. Lovejoy and the young man are doing just anything now in that enthusiastic. March 45, page 7. Charles Lovejoy celebrated B.E. Day in most peculiar, not to say damn expensive, manner. He was up in the woods above the old Barnard place for the tractor. The Barnard place is where the Barnard Free Farm and house is now. He dismounted the track opened the barway to the field. Swept the machine in gear. When he was wrestling with the bars, the tractor took the bit in his teeth and lit down the hillside clear to the wall back of the house where it came up wham. Both fools stripped off the bottom and frankly stripped, and in fact, there wasn't much to pick up except scrap. Now that's damn hard luck any man's language.
Hi, I'm Randy Levitt. I'm Dan's brother and my favorite storyteller, John Levitt's nephew. I have a lot of families already spoken today, and a large family in this valley. I'm proud of all of them. So, I live down Broad Brook. I used to, comically, I thought, call it deepest, darkest Royalton on the last house in the town of Royalton, but it's actually true now, because you can't get there from there. So this is November 1943, letters from Clay Hill, which is the site of the washout, which is causing us not to use Broad Brook Road for the next year. Clay Hill, 1943. Clay Hill, between the school and the Pipers, got so wet this season that it just up and sat down the crack, developed 4 inches from the outside wheel jack, and the whole shebang slid right down into the brook. Huh? They put a gas shovel on the job and are digging back into the hill and casting something over the bank so that the roadway will be shifted back from the shoulder about his own width, and they were not able to get any gravel on it before the snowstorm. So we judge it will be there the day spring comes. 1943. Okay, and the next letter says, Walter Piper, now he lived down there, right? Walter Piper had an exciting day a few weeks ago. He was hauling hay on the hill across from the Brook School, beside Maud Moore's old place. My son actually lives in that school house. As he was driving the tractor across the face of the hill, which you will remember stands right on edge at this point, the darn thing reared up on 2 wheels, and for a couple of lengths, Walter didn't know whether to unload himself or not. She finally settled down, however, leaving Walter in a cold sweat. He had just begun to recover from his scare when he started up the hill with the hay loader in tow, and all of a sudden the coupling pin came adrift, and the loader started down the hill right smack for the schoolhouse. Walter jumped off and tried to head the damn thing
but it threw him like a bucking bronco. He just laid there waiting for the crash, but none came. So he slowly turned his head and took a quick peek. There she was, kind of nestling down in a clump of wild cherry brush in the trees where she had tangled up at the foot of the hill. There wasn't a mite of damage to the loader or to the school. As for Walter's nerves, oh boy, they were jangled. That guy must have had a rainbow over his shoulder.
Mary Van Olstein Clark, and this is a letter from home, Ella Roberts. December 1943, page 1. We have another new member of the Harvest Service Club to introduce this issue, and Ella Roberts has joined in the waves. She has been accepted and sworn in and expects to report for duty about March 5th. March 1944, page 2. On March 5th, Ella Roberts wrote us from the Naval Air Station at Pasco, Washington, where she is stationed. What machine?
Oh, manicure.
Manicuring aircraft and such like. April 1944, page 2. Now we come to a swell letter from Ella Roberts dated at Pasco, Washington, April 2nd. Ella has a new job. She is on the 4 p.m. to midnight shift. We suppose in the Navy you say watch, as B.S. Cokie, who's handling of the telephone teletalk and the mail. May 1944, page 1. And we have a dandy long letter from Ella Roberts dated May 7th from Pasco, Washington. Ella tells us that the old man of her outfit has ports on order out to the effect that the waves mustn't do any more sunbathing. Isn't that just like Amanda? We ask you. June 1944, page 2. We received a swell letter from Ella Roberts dated June 7th at Pasco. Ella says that they've been having a series of fires out there and that she, with everyone else, has had to wrestle with them for about a week before they were able to get topside of them. Please note, everyone, that Ella is now specialist first class, and she, one other girl, were the only ones at Pasco passed the examination. 15 tried, so congratulations are certainly due to Ella. July 44, page 2. On June 27th, Ella Roberts wrote a letter from Pasco. She has got herself a new job in the photographic laboratory. And her address is now Photo Studio Ship Service Naval Air Station, Pasco, Washington. Poor Ella has to have a new set of tetanus shots due to the fact that the ones given her at Camp Hunter were never recorded. Ella says they took some movies of the doings at the station the day she wrote. Maybe we can get a slant at them someday when newsreels hit Bethel. August 1945, page 3. And now comes a nice long letter from Ella Roberts, dated at Pasco, August 1st. They say that a woman can't keep a secret, but in spite of the fact that Ella hasn't written or said one word about what is going on in Pasco, we now learn that one of the big plants working on the atomic bomb is located right out there on the desert at Pasco.
February 1945, page 8. We regret to report that about the first week of February, Mr. and Mrs. Gates received word that Beecher had been killed in action in Luxembourg on January 21st. This is the first fatality from this immediate neighborhood. And everyone is simply dumb, simple but impressive. Everyone is shocked. A simple but impressive memorial service was held for Beecher at the Congregational Church of South Florida. You will be shocked, and we send sincere sympathy out to all members of his family. April 4th, April 1945, page 4. Fellows and girls, we have some very sad news for you. The ranks at the harbor have been broken again. We have just received word that Harold de Grasse was killed in Germany on April 6th. This word came from his sister Ruby, so we can only accept it as official. We have known that he was missing for some time, but we have continued to hope he would turn up one or another of the prison camps. We know you all join us in extending our sincere sympathy to the members of this family. Harold was a swell lad and a good soldier. May God rest his soul.
John Point and also Mrs. Letters from Home Store Fire. January 1946, page 5. A couple of weeks ago, we had a little excitement in the village. About 10 o'clock one morning, Helen Moore came to our door in great excitement. Seemed like the store was afire. We rushed over with ladders, pails, and water, wrecking bars and axe. Helen Moore, who had happened to be in the village, drove frantically up to Dudley Levitt for a stirrup pump. Galen was up in the space under the roof, and we passed him up 2 pails of water. Seemed like the chimney caught fire, and the roof boards took fire too. Anyway, after about half an hour, the exciting work, the darn thing was put out to keep. No damage resulted, but it was might well have been a bad time if it hadn't been handled properly.
This is rather personal. This is about my parents, and this is from September 43, page 7. And their various guests have been coming to most of the village affairs this summer. Power to one, we are sure glad to see them and hope that they had a good enough time so that they will keep it up. Now, I will tell you how they kept it up. They would start saving gas coupons in January so they could have enough gas to get their 1939 Plymouth station wagon up here from Pelham, New York. And then she would save some more to go back in the fall to put me in school, as well as my brother and sister. The next one is August 44. Mr. and Mrs. Powers and their 4 children are frequent visitors at the village, while Mrs. Powers is only able to spend part of the summer on their place. Still, the rest of the family provides considerable power to the valley, sort of be a Broadbrook Valley Authority. Tennessee, with its TVA, ain't got nothing on us. Thank you.
My name is Harry Harrington. I don't live around here. I'm just one of the thousands of people that pass through this crossroads every day. And when I read about this presentation on the Vermont Historical Society webpage, I would like to honor one of Barnard's finest. As this nice young lady to my left has pointed out, war has a dark side that isn't very pleasant. So I would like to introduce to you Charles Edward Sewell. It's S-O-U-L-E. He was born here in Barnard in 1950, the son of William Jackson Sewell. He enlisted in the Vermont National Guard in 1940, and his unit, Company G of the 172nd Infantry, was called to active service in February of 1941. He and the rest of his company and the regiment traveled to the South Pacific aboard the SS Coolidge, which was sunk after striking their own mines in the harbor at Espiritu Santo. Out of the 5,000 people on that ship, there were only 4 who didn't make it. Charles did. He survived the crash, and he went on to fight in battles until 15 July 1945, when he was killed in action. He didn't write this letter, but he showed up in it. And it's a story as written by Corporal Michael Manal, also company chief. 84 days without a break, in a period in which no one knew from one day to the next whether or not they would see the end. During the campaign, we were known as the Barracudas, named for the deadly fish of the deep sea. We underwent special training for soldiers from New Hampshire, Rhode Island, North Carolina, Ohio, Arkansas, and several other states. We landed on Rendova at dawn on June 30, and we hit the beach fast. For 2 days, we had sporadic opposition. Staff Sergeant Alan Blaney of Windsor became the first from the company to die. He got hit during the air raid as he ran for cover. The company started from the Munda Trail behind the advanced units when we passed a smashing zero. When we saw the pilot was dead, we realized the Japanese were not supermen that we had been told about. The pilot was just another guy. At night when we dug in, we took a lot of harassing fire from snipers, but prevented the enemy from coming through the lines. The next day we advanced faster than our supplies could keep up. The company moved through thick vegetation and swamps, sometimes up to their hips in slimy swamp water, until we came to the beach and started to push towards Munda Airfield. We lost men along the way. PFC Charles E. Sulia, Sergeant Hugh F. Farrington, and Private John J. Franklin, but we blasted the Japanese all along the way. Staff Sergeant Carlton R. Bashur of Windsor hopped on top of a tank and guided it right into a pillbox. Others attacked pillboxes with grenades. The skirmishes continued for days. As we eliminated the enemy, our casualties rose too. Staff Sergeant Edward J. O'Brien stepped up and took command of the company when our company commander was wounded. Heavy artillery played a big part in the final assault on the airfield, and we assaulted and captured Mortar Hill, and our mortar squad and machine gun crews began to work with riflemen and scouts. 2 days later, Munda fell, and we returned to the beach. That's an excerpt from a letter written as it appeared in the January 1944 edition of the Springfield Report. Charles is buried in Woodstock, in the cemetery there. But today, just as an aside, I was out at Randolph at the Veterans Cemetery, and I was doing some research on the Columbarium project. And at random, we went up to one of the niches in the columbarium just to measure the size of the faceplate. And the name on that particular granite is Harold Jackson Seward. Now, William Jackson was Charles's father. There's got to be a connection in there somewhere. And it's just an amazing coincidence that that's the niche that I've stepped up to. Harold was a veteran of the Korean War. And I saw a Blue Star banner here. I think that is a World War II Blue Star banner, but they're still in use. Right after 9/11, when the Vermont Air National Guard started to go to Southwest Asia or the Middle East, at each departure ceremony, the American Legion would come in and present each one of the airmen with one of those Blue Star banners. And in the case of Charles, his parents would have had a Blue Star banner, but after he was killed in action, they would have changed that star to gold and continued to fly that in the winter. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Well, that concludes the gets done, coming up. That concludes the program, but I will get refreshments out here, and I'm going to make a dash to the Grange Hall to get that honor roll so that we can all get a good squint at it. And I'm sure there are any number of people here that you might want to talk to about some of the things you've read about. And for all of you that read, thank you. Thank you both for your very clear, wonderful interpretation and for not breaking down in laughter at a few of the passages. Okay.